What's going on? It's time for another advancement in the Jeep WJ rebuild series. So now we're going to be moving on to changing out the rear upper control arm and the front upper control arms. I guess I should kind of go and explain why I decided to really do this now. Recently, as I've been driving the vehicle going down like a straight road, pretty much the car feels like wind's always hitting up against it, and it's very hard to keep it centered in the road. And it's pretty much because the rear upper control arm is so rusted and rotted out that I'm pretty sure it's just allowing the rear axle to kind of move left and right, which is why I'm always countering the steering. And I have a mild bit of death wobble in the front end. The only real thing I have never changed on it is the upper control arm bushings. So we're gonna be changing that out. So this is the full set of stuff we're gonna be working with here. So these are my new upper control arms for the front. I went and bought some Max speeding rods ones. It was the only thing I could really get within a reasonable amount of time during the holidays. So I can have a tubular designed control arm. So some new bushings for the front axle, a new ball joint for the rear, and then a brand new entire upper control arm as well for the rear. So I'll show you what we're kind of working with here. So this is the rear control arm. So as you can see, it's completely rotted. It rusted out. All right, so I've already begun soaking these bolts in PB Blaster, and I'm gonna try using my impact to get them out. I found historically, whenever I'm trying to work on any kind of rusted bolts, using impacts makes it a lot easier and way less risk of actually stripping the head off these bolts. So if you have access to an impact, try to use it. If you got to use a hand tool, Godspeed to you. All right, so the last bolt you're gonna have to do is all the way on the top side of the upper control arm. Take this off, and after that point, the only other last things you have to do is you're gonna have to take off the brackets that mount one of your brake lines to the control arm. Mine are so rusted, I have incredibly high doubts these won't completely just strip straight off. So you may have to come down to using just like a Dremel tool and just like cutting these off just so you can remove it. I've had to do that before too. Again, thanks salted Ohio weather. Just to give you insight of how beat up this control arm is, it's literally, I can rip it apart just by barely pulling on it. And this is where the real fun begins. Now you just get to whack this with a hammer, and then eventually it just should come loose from the bolt joint and the unibody. Damn! All right, so I finally got the original one out of the car. So as you can see, it is not one big piece. It is 3 separate pieces. So I've done this on other Grand Cherokees before too, and I've had a very similar problem where this ball joint completely welds itself inside the A-arm and makes it impossible to get it out. So you'll see even in the video, me completely whacking at it with a hammer. I used an air hammer at one point. I tried cutting it with a Sawzall, to no avail. So if you're ever stuck in this position where you can't get this to come off from the A-arm, what you can do is you can cut and section out the A-arm and try to cut these as short as you can to like this weld point here. And that allows you, while it's still mounted to the axle, to get the arms out from the unibody and then rotate the ball joint like this, remove the bolt, remove it, etc., until the point where you can actually take the full thing out all as one piece. If you're in this position too, I mean, I definitely wouldn't recommend reusing this ball joint at all. The new ball joint, I think I literally only paid like 20 bucks and they came with brand new hardware. So definitely don't recommend reusing the same one. So yeah, I'm gonna leave all the part in of me fighting the car to get the old one out, because I feel like you should probably know what you're getting into when you're doing this, especially if you live in like a salt prone area. So this is definitely one of those cases where it's supposed to be an hour job, but it could quickly end up being a 3-hour job. Also, so you can see how shredded this ball joint is, you can easily move this by hand. That is not supposed to be the case at all. And in a perfect condition, you shouldn't even be able to move this with your hand at all. All right, there's not really an easy way of doing this, to be completely honest. So you just have to kind of thread it in, and hopefully once you get it in there, run through the bolts and try to fit this inside the ball joint. All right, and with the rear control arm all buttoned up, we can move towards the front now with the upper control arms. All right, so this is kind of what we're working with here on the front end. So this is currently how my upper control arm is mounted. I don't know if you can see it, but there is a pretty good gap showing of the thread. So that's probably most definitely why I had death wobble, because there's probably a bunch of play in that upper control arm. So yeah, it pretty much already loosened for me, which is cool. And just to get access to the upper one, you have to remove a grommet that's inside the frame rail. Once you've done that, you'll have a 13 mil bolt that goes through there with a flag nut on the back side. So I just use an impact to zip that out. All right, so this is the actual bushing that's inside the axle side. So definitely looks original to the vehicle. I'm gonna go ahead and try putting just a screwdriver in place to see if I can actually make it move. That's how you'll probably know it's bad. Oh yeah, that's completely shot. All right, literally my phone died in the process of me trying to take this off. So I don't have any footage. But getting this out was quite the battle. As you can see, it's completely shredded. So again, if you're not in a salt-prone area, this totally isn't really a problem. But in my case, it was really, really, really rusted and welded into the axle here. So I had to use an air hammer in order to actually press the fitting out this way. But it was really stuck. So another tip I can really give, you can take a Sawzall and try your best to reach it within here and try to cut like a straight line past the rubber into the casing, and try to cut the casing without obviously trying to hit any of this. What you're basically doing is that you're kind of breaking the weld in the seal this has inside here. And once you start air hammering it, it kind of starts collapsing in on itself, which then kind of starts freeing it up more and pressing it out. As well, I used PB Blaster that also kind of helped get in there and tried to break apart this welded on mess. So the new one is obviously 9-day difference compared to my old one. So this is just going to go back inside the axle. I have a ball joint assembly kit to go ahead and press this in. But sometimes you can just get away with just hammering this with a socket. We'll see. For the actual control arm, I already kind of preset it. So all you got to do is you're going to take the old arm off, and then you're going to take your new tubular style arm and line up between the holes and just lengthen out your new arm to that same length. That way you have the same pinion angle and everything. All right, so as you can see, I got the passenger side one done already. And it's a different day. Came back to the shop, going ahead and try finishing the driver's side one now. And we're gonna go ahead and see probably what it's gonna look like. I'm guessing it's not gonna be that difficult to actually get the bushing out, considering there's an actual lip for me to be able to hit in order to get it out. So hopefully it's a lot easier in day 2. Just to kind of make more emphasis of this is not going to be an easy job. So this is the new bushing, and this is the one that I got out of the driver's side. This one fought me really bad with the air hammer. So I had to do a similar process. I had to knock out the centerpiece of the actual bushing. And then once then I could actually fit a Sawzall and actually cut through the rubber and then into the actual metal piece itself. And then finally, because of that, it kind of eventually will collapse in on itself inside the axle housing and then allow you to actually air hammer it out. So now I can actually move on to putting the new one in again. All right, so pressing this in has been quite the task, at least really on the driver's side. So I'm using a ball joint removal tool in order to really get these in. You could use a C-clamp, but I doubt you'll find anything that's probably strong enough to have that much force to press it in. On the frame rail side, I have one of the cups that matches the size of the bushing pressing in. On the other side, I kind of have like a bearing race tool pressing up against the axle. And so with all that configuration, you can have it set up. It's still gonna be really tight because this is basically be scraping up against your pan, and you can't necessarily flip it towards the driver's side frame rail to have the threads on this side because you'll be in collision with this perch. So yeah, this is not really a simple thing to really do. I got this particular set from Harbor Freight, but if you maybe find one on Amazon that has good reviews and is a smaller form factor, I recommend getting it for this particular job. Now you can see I got the bushing in. On the driver's side, it's completely normal. You're gonna have this gap here, that's fine. What you're shooting for on the other side of it though is trying to have this flush up against this, and then you'll be properly installed. And again, you're just gonna try taking your new adjustable arm and just matching the length and just matching basically the holes from the existing control arm to the new one. All right, so I nearly got the arm in. So as you can see, I actually have the bolt and a nut through on the axle side. So if you're having issues trying to get it to line up, you can just get some come along straps. And I like to use the transfer case here and just tighten the straps on here and put the other end wrapping around and looping it through the axle side. And then you can just sit here and crank away at these and it will pull the axle back, so that way you can actually line it up there and not have any issues. So I've already got the bolt in, so I can actually go ahead and disengage these. All right, we're gonna go and finish toning up the arm. All right, so we're driving around, giving a quick test drive after changing out all the bushings. First impressions immediately is I don't really have any bumps here or death wobble, which is great. Obviously too, in the steering wheel, there is a lot of responsiveness. It's definitely a lot more stiffer. Prior to, like, you could have like literally move the steering wheel probably an inch and a half left or right before finally the wheel started actually turning on the road. So having more control and feedback is awesome too. All right, and that's it for this video. Pretty happy with all the results I got. Pretty much, although there was a lot of work, honestly it was really worth it. You can look forward to in future videos. I did purchase the HD steering kit from Trail Forged, so we're gonna be going through and installing that. So really excited to have that installed. So if you're interested in the install for the Trail Forged HD steering system, make sure to stay subscribed to get that update for when that video is released. But otherwise, yeah, if you want to continue to support my channel and all my future videos, giving this video a like or even subscribing will be a tremendous help. So thanks again for tuning in.